Taylor, you're the first one. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We'll turn my TV off so we can talk. Yes. Hi. Hi, Taylor. Thanks for coming. You're consistent. Hopefully, we'll be back in school on Monday. If we're not, too bad. We'll just have to sleep in. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I just talked with somebody from the school today. We don't know if we're going to come back on Monday. Right now we are, but that could change at any moment. But
was I muted a second ago?
Huh? What's that?
Was I muted a second ago? I think I was muted.
Oh, yeah, you were. You were.
All right, I'm good now.
Are you wanting to go back to school?
Okay. Yes. Well, not really. I don't know. I'm confused.
Oh, maybe not. Yeah. So
Yeah,
for me, it's easier to teach when I'm in class. This is a little bit more difficult, but it's been okay so far. It's been all right. I've been working on my MOSAT, or VOSAT, should say, call it.
VOSAT.
VOSAT. Yes. I always call it the wrong thing. Here's I'm going to show you something real quick while nobody's on. I'll show you this quickly. Here's my MOSAT so far. And it's just, hey, pretty girl. Oh. Hi, I'm Mr. Morrow from Carlson High School. I have bulldogs. We went from Pomeranians to bulldogs. Hey, Sam. To the bigger breed. Big, I'll be right with you. And burly these dogs are. They're very, very strong. Their jaws are really powerful. And they're a lot of fun to have around. Many people think that these dogs are mean by the looks of them, but they're anything but mean. They're great family dogs. They like to be right next to people. In fact, they're the breed that has to have a human being to take care of them because their folds need to be cleaned and they just can't survive without a human being. We rescued both of these dogs from Ohio, and I think Heidi's from Indiana.
Get it out of there. Go on. Go on.
They've been great dogs for us. They're great protection in the house. Anyway, that's a taste of wants to put that. An alarm system hey, Sam. Come back here with, didn't mean to, this is not about my bulldogs. This is about talking to you. And good to see you, by the way. How's retirement doing? I'm not hearing you. Are you muted?
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, there you go.
I'm back in Burbank.
That's what you were saying.
Yeah, I did one episode for a friend of mine, and I'm really hoping that that's it.
What did you do an episode of?
A Disney show called Just Roll With It.
Just Roll With It?
Yeah.
Because my kids are 16 and 18. They're right at that age group that watched everything that you did. In fact, these kids that are students that are coming on right now, they're all the age group of that watched everything that you did, probably. And these guys hopefully will be much more vocal than the last time I had you. Last time I had you, my students were very shy and quiet. And these poor guys have been virtual. We've been virtual most of the time here in Michigan. And we went back to school virtual one day. Now we're full virtual till next week, and then it's going to change. More and more students are coming on right now, but I'm having them just. I want them to ask you questions today, and let you tell them a little bit about what you do, and we'll just wait a minute till they all get here. But you're retired, but you went back for a little bit to Burbank. Now, where do you live? What you live in Virginia now?
Living in my RV.
You're living in your RV?
Yep.
How is that going?
It's proving to be a little smaller than what I liked, but I traveled around, for like 3 years and just going, and it worked great. But now I'm staying in it at lengthy time, so I think I'm going to upgrade a little bit and get a little bigger. But I'm just traveling around, trying to find some place to land.
Have you been to Charlotte lately? Ever go back there?
Not. I lost my computer yesterday. My MacBook.
Lost it.
My MacBook quit, so I'm on an iPad here, and
okay.
And I'm trying to figure this one out.
Okay.
I haven't been to Charlotte in a while, but I'll be going back there. Just going through. I'm looking for property down in probably down in South Carolina somewhere on a lake. I'm looking for a lake property.
I love the Carolinas. My wife wants to move to Georgia when I retire, and
North Georgia is I'm looking at too. There's some nice lakes in that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have family down in south of. I think it's right near Athens, right near University of Georgia.
Yeah. So what grade are these kids?
11th and 12th grade. It's a mixture. Okay. Most of them are juniors, 11th grade, but there are some seniors. Most of these students, I don't have as many this year as I used to. I used to have like 30 in a class, but because of COVID, we only can have like 10. So a lot of them are on right now. They're coming, they keep popping in. A lot of these students are very interested in this field. Even if it's not, traditional, might be, I have students that like to do voiceover work. Some of them are into editing big time, short film people, and, listening to you and talking to you, maybe they can get some insight into, wow, the guy lived in LA and he did all these things, and the shows that I watched, I want them to kind of get a little bit behind the scenes, and what your basic work day was like being you were an assistant director. Is that what they called it? Associate director. Okay. Tell them what associate director is. And who you are. I'm sorry. I didn't
how do I get
tell them who you are? And
okay, how do I get to the I'm trying to get to the gallery view, because right now I'm only seeing you.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to also make you so you can pop stuff in if you want to show them anything? Oh, you probably won't on the iPad. So
I don't.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. I got you.
I just can't see. I can't see anybody.
Anybody know how to get the gallery view real easy for him on an iPad?
An iPad.
He wants to see you guys. Right now, he can't see you. If you click on participate.
Here we go. I found it.
Oh, did you?
Okay.
Yeah. Can you see him now?
Yep, I can.
Okay.
I've only worked in electronics for 48 years. Now, if I need something on my phone, I call my daughter and go, "How do I do this?"
Yes.
Good morning. Good afternoon, I guess, for you.
Yeah.
Good morning.
That's afternoon for us.
Colin, I hope you're not going into lighting.
Silhouette. Hey, it's a silhouette.
Wow.
Colin gets called out.
Okay. You're totally silhouette. So, okay.
We've got a lot.
My name is Sam. Patrick, did we ever meet? I think you came right about. I
was a student when you were the director of the show, and I worked on Entre Me and some of the foreign shows.
Okay, then I met. But
we crossed paths. Let's put it that way.
So long ago.
Yeah.
But this is kind of cool. I was telling Pat, my MacBook Pro took a dive yesterday, so I had first time I've used this on the iPad. I went to school. Hang on. It's actually what everybody would consider cold in California.
You're in Burbank, right? You're in Burbank, right?
In Burbank. I lived in Burbank, lived in LA for 39 years, and worked freelance the whole time here. I was never on staff. I worked on some shows for a lengthy time, but I was never on staff. It's totally freelance. And but I went to college and actually majored in broadcast engineering. Built a TV station in Greenville, South Carolina, my last year in college. And then it was a Christian UHF channel that very few people watched at the time. But took us about 3 months to actually build it. And I mean, when I went there, it was a cinder block building with a pile of used equipment that we all put together, 4 of us, and got channel 16 going, which is still running today in Greenville. It's in a new location. But as soon as we got it going, they didn't hire anybody else to run it. So the 4 engineers were basically running, about half of our programming. So I really enjoyed that part. I liked production better than I did trying to fix old equipment. But I ended up started directing their main talk variety show. And from there, I went on and helped start PTL Television, which I'm sure none of you have ever heard of. But it was at one time the largest Christian television ministry in the world. If I'm not mistaken, we did have the first private 24-hour satellite transponder, I guess in the United States. I don't know about the world. But did a lot of work there, worked for about 8 years. And then I left. I left and came to California. Actually, the second time, because I came to California right when I got with PTL. We started Trinity Broadcasting, which is actually still going. I helped start that. And then Jim went to Charlotte, and so I went there with him. Done about everything as far as production goes. The only job that I think I have never done is an audio boom. Oh. Done about everything else, from the engineering part, camera, videotape, audio, running a transmitter, to every part of the production team too. I came out here in '81 and was very lucky. Met some guys. Actually, I had my first job the third day I was out here, and I got on with the crew that I worked with pretty steadily. And then in '83, '84, I was trying to find what part of the business I wanted to get into. And I ended up in sitcoms, which to me is probably as far as scheduling and hours and all of that, is probably the best part of the business to be in. I wanted to do episodic, the dramatic TV shows, and found out at the time they were literally working 6 or 7 days a week, anywhere from 14 to 18 hours a day. And I was young then. It was in my 30s, and I thought I'd like to have a life too. So didn't do that. Thought about the movies, tried to get into that. And I remember one show I was working on, a guy had just come off a movie. He'd been in the Mojave Desert for 3 months. And I thought, nah, don't want to do that. So I ended up in sitcoms, multi-camera sitcoms, which I've done since the early 80s. I don't know exactly.
Associate director. What's an associate director? That's what you did a lot of, right?
Yeah. I ended up getting a little show called Married with Children in 1988. It was on the new network, Fox. And it basically built that network because it became very popular. And I was on it for 9 years. I've been technical director on sitcoms. I don't know if you know that term. It's in a multi-camera show, it's the guy who runs the switcher who actually makes the cuts the cameras or dissolves or puts in effects or whatever. He's following direction from the director, but you're doing all the work. Well, not really. So I'd done that for several years, and I got married with children, and I was TD on that for 2 years, the third and fourth season. And I got along very well with the main director. And so in 1990, he asked me if I wanted to AD the show, or be the associate director. So I got into the Directors Guild and started ADing that. AD'd it for 7 years, the last 7 years of the show. It went for 11. And I also directed about 18 episodes, which was a lot of fun, which is what I was headed toward, trying to direct. But television is not really a director's medium in most of the stuff. If you're doing entertainment or live or sports or stuff like that, yeah, the director pretty much controls it. But in the world of drama and especially sitcoms, it's a producer's medium. So you work hard taking the story and make it into a visual art. And then you have a producer or a writer come in and say, "Oh, I don't like them sitting down here. I don't like them coming in from there." And you can, and we are backed by the Guild, and we can say, well, that's the way we're going to do it. Of course, they run the show, so you probably won't do any more episodes. So,
regardless.
So I actually was on my way to directing, but then it wasn't fun. You're constantly trying to appease somebody's, when you want to tell them, why don't you come down here and direct and I'll watch. So I backed out of that, and most of my career here was as an associate director. You have an assistant director, but in the Guild we distinguish them by calling them the first AD. And I'm just an AD, but the first AD kind of runs the stage, and he does all the scheduling and make sure the actors are where they are, and kind of runs the stage as it's going. Whereas I, as an associate director, worked with the director and made sure that there was enough coverage of a show, if it was a taped show or filmed, that the editor had enough stuff to put the show together. An associate director on a live variety show, you're still dealing with the cameras and the shots, but there is some difference there. But basically, I'm just make sure that the editor will be happy and get everything that he needs and passes. Depending on the director, some directors like to do it all, and they do it all, and that makes my job a lot easier. Especially once I got into the Disney productions, a lot of the cast members a lot of the actors wanted to direct, so they would, and most of them had no idea how to shoot a show. They could direct the actors, they could get performance, but wouldn't have any idea how to set your cameras up to where you can cover it. So those shows, even though required a lot more work on my part, I enjoyed it because it gave me a creative outlet that I could do. And even the directors and there was only 2 or 3 that I worked with that set every shot and gave out all the shots and adjusted them on the go. And but even then, if I had an idea or something, I could always pass that on. Sometimes it went through, sometimes it didn't. But
were you out there with the actors on the day that they would shoot the final?
Yeah, you were always with them. But back in the day when we used videotape, we were the director, the AD, the technical director, the producers were all in a booth. And, you know, we shot everything from a booth, used a line cut. We also did ISOs, but when I started, we would only use like one ISO machine, which, you know, finally they said, well, why don't we just ISO everything? And because you had to use a line cut, you had to use whatever the TD gave you. Mm-hmm. And then when in the late 90s, 16:9 high def was scheduled, I think, to start around 2000, or maybe even, no, I guess it's around 2000 or 2002. It got pushed a few times. But when you were doing videotape, of course, you were using a 4:3 format, the standard definition 4:3. Your picture size was 4:3. And then when they started talking about going high definition 16:9, the producers started worrying that, okay, if we continue 4:3 and get a long running show, that's got to go into syndication. You know, they were worried that it wouldn't be up to par. And you see them now. If you go onto your cable and your, I don't have satellite. I use an off-air antenna here in my RV. And in Los Angeles, when you scan for channels, there's about 175 digital channels that you can get off air.
Wow.
Because you have channel 2, and then you have well, now you don't have channel 2. That was the old analog. You have 2.1, and that's the CBS station here. Then you have 2.2, 2.3, 4.1, and then you get, I think the Armenian station here is channel 10, and I think they have like 16 secondary digital channels. So it's going through now, you see a lot of old programming, you know, and I mean, Married with Children is still running on Get TV, you know, and it's a 4:3, so it's got the black stripes on the side. With 35mm, which is what the other format, the film format for the sitcoms, which several did, they could go back to the original, because 35mm was actually a wide screen, 16:9, so they could reprocess from the original copy, original film, and come up with a 16:9 format. Video, you could do that. So everybody started in 98 and 99, started coming out of the booth. And they would still, you had high def, but they would use video, but they would do it from the floor like the film crews did. Because film crews, you don't have a switcher, you know, you just had cameras. And so everybody was on the floor. And nowadays, that's how all of the sitcoms are done. You're on the floor. So they even changed the contracts or even the job titles in the DGA. They did a 2-year interim contract where they merged everything, because my job on the floor at that time, instead of an associate director, was called a technical coordinator. And you did the same thing. You made sure the shots were there, but you were on the floor with the actors and all that. Nowadays, that's the way it is. But now there is no more technical coordinator. We're all associate directors.
Oh, I want to refresh everybody's memory. You're there in Burbank doing, what is it right now? What's the show that you were working on?
Last week I just filled in on a show called Just Roll With It. It's a Disney show. Yeah.
I wanted to share, refresh everybody's memory. This is your page.
Oh, my IMDb.
Uh-huh.
Which I never.
I wanted to show them, just refresh their memory, some of the stuff that you were involved with. I remember a lot of these because my kids are of their age, and I used to watch these with them, and I'd see the Laugh. Is it Laugh Productions you were with? Kind of, you work with them, or was that something else?
It's Just a Laugh.
Just a Laugh.
Okay. It's Just a Laugh production.
It's Just a Laugh Productions. Okay.
It's an LLC of Disney.
Oh, okay.
They had no employees.
But I was fascinated that you worked when you were telling me some of the things you worked on, and some of the that you'd be out there, and you told me it took a week to do an episode of most sitcoms, that they just rewrite it, and then on the final day on a Friday, everybody would do it, and I never, for them to understand the concept of how much writing goes into this, and doing it over and over again until it's right, and but I'm hoping they're going to have some questions for you. That's my.
Well, a typical week would be, and some shows shot on Friday, and then there was other shows that would shoot on Tuesday, and they did that because the engineering crews were usually there just for 3 days: Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Mm-hmm. Actually, a lot of it was I guess engineering was really only there like Thursday and Friday. He would come in on Thursday, rehearse everything on camera, shoot on Friday. Well, they could double that up in a week and do a show on Tuesday, because that crew didn't have anything to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So, but let's say it's a Friday show. Married with Children was a Friday show. You would go in, and a lot of the Disney shows were Fridays. You go in on Monday and you would have a table read, which means that everybody was around the table. Last week was fun. It's all on Zoom because of COVID. Right. But the whole process has really taken a big hit, with the COVID thing. But typically you would go in and all the cast would sit around the table. Depending on some of the guest stars, if they were really heavy in a show, they would come in. If not, you'd just have a stand-in read their part. But they would just read the script, but read it as if they were acting it, because the writers need to see how it goes together once the actors are writing. Also, the network needs to see, because the networks usually have a lot of say in what the script says. Mm-hmm. But you would do that, and then you'd have a production meeting. The cast would go off somewhere, and you would have a production meeting, and you go page by page, line by line. If I was directing, I'd go, okay, somebody enters. All right, wardrobe's got to know what they're going to wear, and you'd be surprised about how long some of this discussion goes, just depending on the script. But wardrobe decides what they're wearing. Hair decides how their hair is done. Props, he's carrying a briefcase or whatever. You hit every little item in that script, so that when you leave that meeting, everybody knows what they've got to do. And then we would get out of that, usually go to lunch, and then we would start rehearsing, or as in the industry, it's put it on its feet. It's taking that script, those words, and putting it into action. So, and that varies totally from director to director and cast. Some cast, especially after a while, they don't, tell me what to do, tell me where to go, tell me where should I start. Other cast members have read it, and they already have it. If a good actor will already have in his mind what he wants to do. Might not work, but I always let them do it. If we start a scene, and I wouldn't give them any direction, just say, let's do this, until I had it on. I mean, I had it all planned out, but they're acting, that's their character and all that. So I would let them do something until they got themselves in a corner or it wasn't working. But you would rehearse a little bit on Monday, not a lot, because from the note sessions after the table read that a lot of the script will change. Sometimes it didn't, but a lot of times it changed. So Tuesday you would rehearse all day. Nowadays the producers like to see a run through on Tuesday, so you end up rehearsing the whole show. Might not be perfect, they're still on book, they're still reading, but the producers would watch a run through, which meant that you got another script change on Wednesday. On Wednesdays, you would basically get it to where you want it, because then you had the network run through. So the network execs would come in and you show them the whole thing. Thursdays on an adult show, usually you just camera block everything. And Thursday and then Friday, or you do a run through with cameras for the producers, and they would again make changes.
So the camera people wouldn't show up till Thursday, maybe, for the show.
Camera people would come, camera and audio,
Thursday.
video and all that.
Yeah.
And then Friday you would refresh scenes, make any kind of changes that they would made in the script, and on a live audience show, you would shoot the show in front of a live audience Friday night. On the Disney shows or Nickelodeon, any place you have a lot of kids, California is very, very strict as far as the amount of time you can work a kid. They didn't used to be, but they are now. So there's a lot of laws. Certain ages can work so many hours. Then you have to have school. So if you've got a real young kid, if you got a 6-year-old, you really get about 3 hours work out of him a day, because he's got to go to school, do all this other stuff. So in a lot of the kids shows, we would record usually about half the show on Thursday. The editor would do a quick assembly of those scenes that night, and then Friday you come in and rehearse, and then do the rest of the show in front of an audience, playing back what you did the previous day. That kind of changed a lot of stuff when all the Disney stuff started. But some Disney shows, I did a show called Kicking It.
Does anybody know Kicking It? I bet they do. I bet all of them do.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That show, the first year we tried to do an audience, but there was so many stunts and gags that we had to do that you just couldn't do it in front of an audience. So that show, we would just shoot half of it on Thursday, finish up half of it on Friday. The only show that was like that always did an audience was Wizards on Waverly. What is it?
Waverly?
Wizard.
Anybody know what that is? Chirp in if you know.
Wizards on Waverly Place. Is that what it was called?
I think that's what it's called.
We always just said Wizards because it's, but that show had a lot of effects because they were wizards. So they would, cast spells and change people's clothes and all that. But we always did an audience show with them. And what we basically did is, when we got to the place where we didn't pre-record it, when we had to do it in front of them, we would just stop and say, okay, this is how we do things. And actually they enjoyed it,
Yeah.
But we did an audience all the time with that show.
Can I have a quick question for you, from me, and then I'm gonna let them give you some questions. Was there one show that you worked on, you thought it wasn't going to go anywhere, and it became a big hit? I think I know what you're going to say, but is there one show that you thought wasn't going to?
When Hannah Montana started, that was the first show that I did with Disney. I was actually on another show that got canceled, and it was a mid-season show, which you love to get because you knew you were going to do 13 shows. It didn't air until later, but this one was so bad that it got canceled the 4th week. So I called the producer, Richard King, on Hannah Montana, And he said, Sam, I already got us an AD, but he said, I need an audience switcher, which is basically a TD. You cut the show for the audience, but it's a lot different in the fact that you just, they don't give you a script. They don't give you a line cut. You just do it. So I started that first season as an audience switcher. The first 3 weeks, Miley Cyrus was so green. She'd never done anything. I mean, she'd walked out on a stage in a concert with her dad, but she had never done any acting. So the first 3 weeks, we did it without an audience. And I was looking for work because I thought this is never going to go. She was so bad. And the 4th episode, they brought in an audience, and the kids went wild. And of course, you know how Hannah Montana went 4 seasons. Miley Cyrus made a ton of money. So did Disney, but that was a big hit. But that was probably the one show that I just thought, there ain't no way this show's going to go.
Interesting. Hey guys, I want you to chirp in now. If you have any questions for Sam, any show that you're interested in or want to know anything.
I have a question. So, you worked with the dog with the blog, right?
I did.
Did you get to meet the dog? Did you get to pet him?
Oh, yes.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Okay, another question. I don't know if we can answer. How do they make it talk? I want to know. I've always been so curious.
It was computer generated graphics.
Really?
We were limited as far as what we could do when the dog talked.
Right.
But they built a computer generated face. I think it was like from the ears all the way to its mouth, and maybe not the eyes. I think it may have just been the nose and the mouth. But when we shot him, we like to lock it off, because then you're only dealing with his movement. But
right.
If we had to, we could pan or tilt. And the producer hated when we did that, because now you're pretty much doubling the work to mask that CGI face to track the dog's movement, because now you're tracking the dog movement and the camera movement. So the only thing that we couldn't do was we couldn't zoom in or out during that, because, well, I mean, I guess they could, but it really gets expensive then now when you're zooming the face and moving it and all that. But it wasn't difficult shooting it. It was just you had to make sure that all your shots were there, and we did it in front of an audience too. No, we didn't. No, we didn't do that. We didn't do that in front of an audience. Okay. But it was fun, and the dog was great. And that dog, the trainer, his name was Steve something. He found this dog behind his house in the woods. It was almost dead.
Really?
Yeah, totally emaciated. Took it to the vet. Had to just like baby it for a long time. But that dog was so well trained, and of course he didn't have spots either. He was all white. The spots on the dog were actually paint. They painted those.
Really?
They didn't want.
I'm surprised that the spots weren't real.
They weren't real.
Wow.
But the way he trained the dog, and I've worked with animals quite a bit, which is not fun usually. But if I wanted the dog moved to the left, the trainer wouldn't go in and move him. He would go in, have him get up, have him move with all of his signals. So he almost did it like it was a person. And the dog was awesome. Yeah. Good show.
Yeah.
Probably one of the better shows, Disney shows that I did.
Next question.
Very cool.
Anybody? I'm sure they got some more. You're frozen, by the way.
Blake,
Like,
had a-
Blake. Okay.
all right, so like when you were ending a show, like the very last episode, did you feel any emotion like maybe the actors might have?
oh yeah, lots. And I keep up with a lot of the kids, because you Miley Cyrus was 12 years old when she started that show, and Olivia Holt and Kicking It, who now has quite a music career going, she was 12, and so you kind of, it's like your kids. When I did Hannah, my daughter was 9, there was another show on Nickelodeon that I don't know if any of you watched, Bella and the Bulldogs. I see
Is
that.
that the cheerleader thing?
It was the cheerleader who became the quarterback of the football.
They probably know what it is, because I had to watch it with my kids on occasion.
Bella and the Bulldog. That little girl, Breck Bassinger from Texas. I think she was about 14 when we started that show. She's now the new star girl for DC. DC. Not Marvel. It's the DC. It's not DC Comics. It's DC something.
Anybody know who that is he's talking about?
Star Girl. I think it's on the CW network.
Okay.
But she was one. Actually, I all the cast, there was 6 kids. Only one of the kids had worked multi-camera. They had all been in movies and stuff and commercials, but these kids I worked with, I did 5 days on that show, because there was a lot of cast, and they were all green. So they asked me to do 5 days a week. So I did. And I 2 years after the show, or maybe 3 years after the show, I'm not a friend with her on Facebook, but I'm a friend with her mother. I didn't like to, friend these kids. Just if they friended me, then that's fine. I would accept it. But I didn't just go out and say, hey, be my friend on Facebook, because it could get misconstrued. But her mother sent me, this was last year. She sent me a note from Breck, because we weren't friends. But she said, Breck asked me to send this to you. And her note was, Sam, I miss you and hope you're doing well. This is like 2-3 years after the show. She says, but I've been filming a new show in Atlanta for the past 3.5 months. It's been absolutely amazing, but has also pushed me in many ways. That being said, I wanted to thank you for everything you taught me on the set of Bella. I get compliments literally daily on my ability to find the lens, find my light, stay out of other people's shots, and overall my awareness of the camera. Wow. I have to thank you for that. You spent so much time and were so patient on Bella and the Bulldogs, teaching me how to work with the camera. This crew may not know it, but they owe you hours. They owe you hours of production time that would have been lost had you not taught me so much. That made if I never did anything else, that made my career. I'll always say this, because you go in and you literally, with people that have not worked with multi-camera, they're constantly leaning into shots and into shadows. And I worked with those kids every day. Every day I would just go over and say, if you just lean on your right leg here when they talk, everything is going to be good. And a lot of them didn't. You had to tell them every day. But this little girl, and some people like her, learn. Just wanted to pass that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey guys, you got Sam here. Next question.
I have a
Gotta have
question.
something. There you go. There we go. I knew you'd ask a question.
Who's like the worst like actor you worked with? Like just in general, as in like their attitude or like something like that. I'm just curious. Is that allowed to ask?
There, you know, everybody's different. I would have to say most of the people I worked with were pretty good. Some of them were moody. Some of them, Katie Seagal, who played the wife on Married with Children, could be a real pain most of the time. Sometimes she was okay, but she was a nice lady. It was just, you know, attitude and working. I don't know that I could actually name one person though that gave me grief. There were some. I don't like to remember those. The kids on this show, this new show, Just Roll With It, I think they must be like 8 or 9 or 10, and I was really impressed because they were trying things, and they would ask the director, you know, could I do this, or could I? They were constantly thinking, and so that I was impressed by those kids, and they'll probably be okay.
Next question. Anybody?
I have one.
And there we go.
I have one.
Taylor.
I have two actually.
Good.
First one is, what's your favorite show you've done?
I've done some good ones. I think Married with Children was probably one of the funniest shows I did. The kids shows I enjoyed probably Hannah Montana the best. Yeah. And Bella and the Bulldogs with Nickelodeon, that was good. I also directed a couple episodes of that. We had a football field out in the park. We built a scaled down football field in the parking lot. It was about 60 yards long instead of 100, which made it interesting in trying to shoot, because we actually would do football plays and that kind of thing. And we almost every week we were on the football field doing stuff, and I would do something that I learned from my DP, Michael Franks, was because it was the field was shorter. I don't know if any of you are in the cameras and camera work and that kind of stuff, but what I would do is if I had two people on the sideline talking to each other, I would tell my wing cameras, A and X, I would say, go as far as you can away, that you have a cross two shot at the end of your lens. And what that did was, because you were at the end of the lens, is your depth of field drops off. So everything behind them goes a little more out of focus. It was tough on the camera ops because the focus, the depth of field in the focus range was short. So they had to be, but that made it look more like more distance behind them. So I would do, I mean, I always use 5 cameras when we were on the football field. We would use a techno crane and then 4 dollies.
One thing I don't think they understand is, where did you shoot the sitcoms? It's in a just, can you explain it's in a, out in a,
it's on a stage.
It's
right. Everything's on a sound stage, except for like sometime last week we went outside. We had to do like an exterior of a school. So we moved outside the sound stage, and we were in this little plaza area in front of the main office building. you know, they dressed it as if it was the school and put a school bus out and put signage everywhere and a big sign on the side of the soundstage that said the school name. I don't remember what that was, but most of the time you're just on the set, you know.
You guys
Now,
know
the Bella,
what stage is. You've never seen one maybe in person. Maybe somebody has.
yeah.
Has anybody seen a soundstage in person? Ever been in one? I went to
No.
Burbank once to visit, and I went to Warner Brothers and got on a soundstage, and it was interesting.
Warner Brothers is probably the classiest lot. Warner Brothers and Paramount are they're classic. I mean, I love working on those lots. Didn't work on them.
When I was there in '91, there was a show being done. It's a primetime ABC show with a Down syndrome kid, and they had a house built right inside the soundstage, and the house would actually move apart, and they could move a lens into the living room, and they had a working, I guess they called it a working stage or a working set. They take food out of the refrigerator at some points to make it look like people had ate the food. I don't know. It was just really interesting to me.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff like that.
You build now, and in multi-camera sitcom, we use 3-wall sets. So because you've got 4 cameras and audio booms, and you know, so it's just 3 walls. It's basically like a theater. You know, you're it's like doing something on the stage in the auditorium. So you're shooting basically 100 and I mean, you know, I have pushed cameras right up into the set in order to get shots, and you know, but it's like shooting a stage on a single camera, on a film, on a movie or something like that. Then you're 4 walls, and because you're moving that every time you make a setup, you're moving the camera, but you can shoot 360. That's the difference in a single camera shoot, staging and multi-camera.
Questions, guys?
I have another one.
Okay. Oh, you got another one. That's right. Go ahead.
How did you get into film?
Before, I don't know, maybe you weren't here. I built a TV station my last year in school. I was a broadcast engineering student. So we built that. And then when we went on the air, I started running audio, and then I started directing the show. And the first 8 years I was in Christian television doing live talk variety, music, a lot of location stuff. And then I went to LA, and I didn't know anybody. I'd worked with a guy just over the phone. He built sets. So he built a couple of little portable sets that we traveled with. And I always told him that I was coming back to LA. And he said, look me up. So his main business was set construction, and he had a big shop, but he had another little stage that small, I think it was, I don't know, 30 by 30 or something like that. And he would just 4-wall that out to people. He would just rent it out. He had some equipment. So the day I got to LA, I talked to him, went over and saw his place, talked to him for a while. And when I was leaving, he goes, well, what are you doing Wednesday? This was on Monday. And I said, looking for a place to live. And he says, well, Dick Clark's shooting something here on Wednesday. He said, you want to run camera? And I said, yeah. So I ran camera on Wednesday, and then he did another thing the next week I did, and I got to know the crew. And I worked pretty constantly for like 6 months, which was very unusual, but I was lucky. God was with me, believe me. And I've worked pretty constantly for
you have
39 years here. I just, like I say, I freelanced. And I always tell people, they ask me, how do you get in? And my big thing is that it's who you know to get in and what you know to stay in, because Especially, I've worked with a lot of directors who were like a producer's cousin or brother or whatever, and they get the job and they do it, and they have no idea what they're doing. You never see them again. So you have to know what you're doing. But I think Disney liked me and liked my work because I would go from one show to the next. There was several times where I wrapped a show on a Friday and started another show the following week.
Did you work with Mike Denton a lot?
He was out here for quite a while, and before I worked with him, because he was doing soap operas and sports, which he still does a lot of sports. But then I got him on one of the, I think it was Kicking It, one of the Disney shows.
You worked on that.
Yeah, and so we worked quite a bit after that.
He was my camera teacher at PTL, instructor in the school back in.
Did you know Cliff Miracle?
Yeah, and I know he went out to LA and made a big.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff. He just moved though. He bought a house somewhere back east.
Wasn't he the Tonight Show guy for a while? Or
he did Jimmy Kimmel for a long time.
Jimmy Kimmel, yeah.
Yeah, but he's done a lot of stuff too. There was an audio man, Bob Whaley.
Oh,
Bob Whaley.
I know Bob.
Bob did the Tonight Show.
Oh, I did not know that. I lost track of Bob after I left.
He did the Tonight Show for a long time. I never actually met Bob. He came after I left, but and I didn't meet him out here, even though he got me into the Tonight Show a couple of times, but I never did get to see him. But we've talked.
Now they don't do the Tonight Show out there anymore. Darn it.
Yeah.
Whole different thing. Hey guys, I don't want to keep Sam. We've almost been an hour, and it doesn't seem like that, but I don't want to keep him too long. Other questions, guys. You got to have some other questions of these shows, I bet. Anybody else have some questions? Taylor, did you ask both of yours? Did you? Okay. Who else has some questions? I asked them to be prepared to ask a question. Anybody got a second question? If anybody doesn't want to ask one.
Sarah asked one in the chat.
Oh, Sarah asked one in the chat. Can you tell me what it is? Because I'm getting covered up by one of your things. Can you?
Was there a show that you were sure was going to take off and didn't?
There you go. That's the one we already talked about, right?
Well, it was the opposite. The one that I didn't think would.
Oh, gotcha.
It wasn't if there was one that I thought would make it. There was actually a couple that recently I did a Carmichael show, Gerard Carmichael. It was, I think it was on CBS. It was a sitcom that was actually a really well done show, and it got canceled. I did Prince of Peoria last year for Netflix. That was a good kid show, and it got canceled. And I thought both of those would go, but so yeah, it happens. And of course, I'm not in the demographic that determines whether a show goes or not. It's usually 20 to 35 or something. I'm well past that age, so there's stuff that I think is good, or if I watch a show on TV and I think it's good, and then all of a sudden it's gone, and I go, "What's wrong with that?" Another show that I never worked on, but I remember my late wife loved sitcoms. She watched everything. She loved Blossom, which is Before Your Time, which I thought was a horrible show, but the show 2.5 Men with Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen. And I remember laying and watching the pilot. We'd heard about it, and my wife wanted to watch it because of Charlie Sheen. And I remember watching the pilot of 2.5 Men, and even she, I mean, at the end of it, we kind of looked at each other and gone, I don't think this is going to make it. It went, what, 10 years, 11 years? But I didn't work on that show. I almost worked on his, the other one that he did, the anger management.
Oh.
But yeah, I was about that far from getting that. But one of the producer's friends called him and said, hey, I don't have any work. So he got it, which happens. Who's waving?
Somebody waving?
Reagan.
I can't get my thing. So.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, I do have a question. Was there any person or cast that you worked with that was actually like miserable for you, or if like somebody didn't like you, or if it just wasn't fun like altogether?
Miserable. I don't, there was people that I wasn't that impressed with, but there was an actor in a show that I did that was very short-lived, and it was I can't remember his name now, but he was a well-known actor, and I directed him, and it was like he was very much a method actor. So you would say, okay, how about on this line if you just go over and sit at the table? And he would think, why would I do that? So everything you ask him to do, he had to have there had to be a purpose in everything that he did, which took a lot of time trying to just get him to move, So that I didn't like too much, but not really. I mean, yeah, they're workers. I mean, they have to do it. I mean, if you get into the toward the end of Married with Children, I mean, it was 11 years, and Ed O'Neill played Bundy. I mean, if he didn't want to do something, he didn't do it. What are you going to do? Fire him? I mean, if you fire him, the show's over. Mm-hmm. So, and they know that.
Right.
They know that they're not going to get fired, So I saw him do things that if it had been the first season or, that he would have probably been gone. But he was also a good actor, and he was the show.
Hey, you told me an interesting story real quick about on Miley Cyrus's show, Hannah Montana, where somebody wanted to stay and meet her and handcuff themselves. Wasn't that?
That was actually Kelly Bundy on Married with Children.
Oh, it's Kelly. Oh, okay. Can you tell that story?
Yeah.
Worth telling?
What's her name? Christina something. Anyway, it was early in the show, but it was at the time when there was another little actress on a sitcom that some guy had been stalking her, and she wouldn't have anything to do with him, and he ended up going and he found out where she lived in an apartment, knocked on the door, she answered, and he shot her and killed her. And that put a lot of fear. Christina Applegate, who was a beautiful girl, and the character was basically that she was a slut and that kind of stuff, which she was totally opposite of. But one day at that time we used to do a dress show at 5 p.m. and basically just do one pass through each scene for that audience, and the producers would see what jokes would get laughs and what jokes didn't, and then they would make rewrites for the air show, which then usually became what aired. But one day we were doing a show, the dress show, and everybody was getting up and leaving, and we all would go, we're going to dinner, and some kid was still sitting in the audience when the security guards came over, and they were just security people. They weren't armed or anything, but this kid had actually handcuffed himself to the railing and wanted to meet Christine Applegate, and he had pictures of her all stuck in his clothes and everything. It was a little frightening. And the next day
Remember all this.
we had off-duty LAPD were security guards, not just the stage security people. But they always drove her to work, and she was scared. I mean, this was literally like a week or two after this other girl had gotten killed.
Where did these Disney shows get recorded at? Where were they at?
All over.
All over?
There's the one I just did was at LA Center Studios, which is right downtown LA. There's 4 huge sound stages there that's been there for ages. We did a lot of them on a stage called Hollywood Center Stages, which was the old Zoetrope. And I think before it was stage 2, there was the original I Love Lucy stage.
Oh, wow.
We did a lot of the shows there. We did Hannah Montana was actually on the KTLA lot. The local Channel 5 in LA has one side of it, but then they had built years ago, there had been some sound stages. I think that's called Sunset and Bronson stages. And they've had some single cameras. Huh?
Work on Saved by the Bell? Did you ever get a chance to work on that?
I did not work on Saved by the Bell. I was doing Married with Children like 3 stages away when they went into production, but I never did it.
Yeah, I got a chance to visit that at Burbank NBC. They had it at Burbank NBC, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, I think they did, which is now Burbank Studios, because when NBC bought Universal, they moved everything from that West Coast NBC complex, which I lived like 2 minutes from. They moved it all up to up on the hill, Universal. So that now is called the Burbank Studios. They do some Nickelodeon shows there now, too.
I'm gonna wrap this up, but anybody else have some questions? This is your chance. Come on, people.
I retired 3 times, and hopefully this done. I sold my house about a month and a half ago, and I'm living in an RV, and I'm getting ready to, actually Friday morning, I'm headed to the East Coast.
Oh.
Getting out of California.
Are you going to have a permanent residence anywhere?
At some point.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a little traveling first.
Yeah.
A little traveling in it.
Anybody have anything else they want to ask? We don't often get somebody with this kind of experience to talk to our class. It was very nice of Sam to do that. He's done it. This is the second time I've had him in. We're going to try to get Mike Denton again. We had Mike Denton before. He's talked to my class. And
yeah.
I have some other friends from PTL especially that have done really well in their fields and gone off places. I like giving them outside of this Michigan. Michigan's not really a production area. Not like Atlanta, Georgia. That last thing, Atlanta. How big is that compared to LA? Is it getting close to like an LA, or is it?
I wouldn't say it's getting close. They do a lot of work there, but LA is just. I mean, there's stages all over the place.
Everything's already in place, and they have all the crews.
Yeah, you've got all the. You don't have. If you need something, it's just a phone call, and they've been doing it here for a long time.
Yeah, yes, they have.
Yeah.
Oh, I thank you for spending time with my class, guys. Nothing else, right? Nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody had to go to class. Okay. I appreciate you coming, Sam. I wish you the best. Thank you very much for giving them some of your time. And now I'm going to want to go back and look at some of those shows, thinking about the things you said.
It's a good industry. I have to say it's sometimes it's a little difficult to get in, but if you can get into it, it is a good industry. And there's a lot of different parts of it, you know.
Yeah, there's many different things I haven't even told them yet.
My job was the best. So, you know. There was some good parts about my job.
Oh, I bet.
There's only one of you. There's only one of you on the show. Nobody really worked for me or under me, but I usually got to tell everybody what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if they didn't do the good job, I didn't have to fire them. I'd go and get their department heads to fire them. So it was good.
I don't want to see them after lunch. Yeah, there you go.
That only happened maybe.
I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you, Sam.
Okay.
Enjoy your day.
Yeah, thank you for
God
coming.
bless you. And
Good luck.
I'll be talking to you. If you ever need anything, you're ever in Michigan, let me know. You ever need anything?
All right.
I appreciate it. Okay.
Okay.
Take it easy.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And the rest of you, just make sure you work on your projects, please. I've been working on mine to show you on Monday, and we're probably going to have school, but there's a chance that we may not. So I will keep you posted, but let's just imagine that we're going to be back in school, but plan, just in case we aren't, that you still keep up with all of your online stuff.
Do you know if we're supposed to have school or not?
Just talked to an administrator today. Here, let me stop the record.